So being strict, like being in a strict environment and then seeing freedom, I chopped life. I chopped life with a big spoon. Then
You did it
removed
too.
the spoon, took from the saucepan. Hey.
Yo! So we just touched down in Rwanda with the boys. Kigali to be exact. Tuli mu Kigali bana mwe. Place is so tidy, so clean, as in clean beyond reproach. Just have a look. I've met some incredible people like Nimbetaba visionaries, Ningashi, deep divers might be the perfect word. And I'd like to share some of these experiences with you. Here's one of the deep divers that I actually came across. But before we get into it, just smash that subscribe button for more. Back again.
Back like we never left.
Like we never left. You talked about my chains first and foremost. The African
Fresh
roots.
gay.
You know what I mean?
Hard gay.
And then I saw the African roots day as well one time. Eh?
Don't know.
For the people. You don't know. Eh?
For the people.
So tell me. Someone sees you. And they'll be like, oh no more. How'd you say it when this girl? How'd you say it?
Uyumukobwa.
Uyumukobwa. Where did stress find her? What does mental health just find her? Like, what does you want with this hot chick? Like, people would see you and they'd be like, this chick is fine. The teachers had like figured out, but then what went wrong?
A lot of people think that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's a wild part. And then especially when you come from like a family that's, you're not badly off.
Stable.
They're like,
that's what I say in Jamaica. Stable.
What struggle have you? You, who knows what an airplane looks like?
And you're on planes back and forth.
Yo, for real.
So, where did this find you? Like, why are you so strong on mental health? Like, why?
Life, man, life.
Like, it's crazy out here in the streets.
Yeah, it's the pressure.
It's a jungle.
The pressure is worse.
It's worse.
Nah, but for real, like, for me, it started with my own mental health journey. And, you know, African society, we don't like talking about it. We don't like talking about it. In some places, it's completely taboo. Like, talk about it and they're like, are you mad? Are you... But in reality, it's something that applies to everyone.
Very prevalent.
Like, if you're human, then you have mental health, you have your physical health.
Yeah.
So I dealt with a lot of stuff in my young age.
What stuff, boss? Really? But you know what stuff is? Guys have been in jail. What guys have fought?
Hey, man. Okay.
But what stuff have you been in?
So let's start with, okay, so my parents are divorced. So I'm a child. I'm a product of divorce. Yeah. And that in itself was long because there was always this tension between me and my father, the back and forth of trying to build. From your infancy? Yeah, because I'm not going to lie, I don't have that many memories of him. He was like, I have pictures with him, which is crazy. I have pictures with him when I was a kid. I was a toddler, but I don't have like actual memories of it. I don't recall. So that in itself was tough because even growing up, you're wondering like, okay, like why isn't he there? Like where is he at? You know, even when you go to school, you're seeing other kids, the popsies are picking them up, and you're just like, well, this is awkward. So that sparked a lot of different things growing up, and then there was the bullying, like, because you know, I've never been a skinny babe. I probably was like in my infancy years, and then it stopped there. The minute I hit a growth spurt, things changed. So people took that for a ride. So having like the bullying and the body image conversations, and then the daddy issues, it was a lot, you know. And being young, you know, a lot of those things you don't know how to make sense of those emotions. You don't know how to make sense of, and it's hard to talk about it because they're like, be grateful you still have a parent that cares. Be grateful that you still have food on the table. Like, that's not the point. Like, I am grateful for those things, but it doesn't take away that this is also happening, you know? So I grew up neglecting a lot of that stuff because that's what you see around you. Like, people don't genuinely address those things, especially like in African families. People go through things like one of your uncles could have lost his wife and kids and everybody and still be acting tough. Yet every single day that man might be going home to break down or whatever may be happening. So it's so normalized that we negate those experiences and keep it pushing. So even for me, that was the case until I reached uni.
Like the rebel came out, that beast came out.
Because uni was when I also first saw freedom. You know, I follow 3 boys.
You were a caged bird.
Yeah,
Prior.
like those things of coffee. Like if the party starts at 10, I have to be home at 10. So basically, there's no party. Hey, my guy.
So you just went to set up the table. The table
As
was
in,
what?
send my well wishes. You saw me, I came, I tried.
I tried my best.
But I was never, I was never actually attending the function. So being strict, like being in a strict environment and then seeing freedom, I chopped life. I chopped life with a big spoon, then removed the spoon, took from the saucepan. Hey, we lived life. But then...
The way you're saying you live life, you could think you're like, someone could think you're 54.
No, because you know all the fun that I didn't have in my teenage years?
You said, okay.
I packed it in one semester. Not even 1 year, one semester.
You said, let me show you this guys what's up.
And the one thing about me, which is really weird, like in my depressive episodes, I perform stellar. Beautifully.
Really?
I'm telling you, I was in the worst mental space possible. But one thing about my grades, they were up. Like, so, I made sure that my first year I passed well, so that in case it gets worse in the second years, there's room for failure. I passed. Like,
how did you correlate that with your stress? How did that connect?
Because I didn't have time. Because if I was at the party on Saturday, I have assignments to do on Sunday. I don't have time. I'm gonna wake up, go eat, then be in the library grinding.
So you barely slept then?
No, I used to sleep, but like I didn't give myself enough time to be alone. Like I made sure every slot of time is filled with something so that I don't have that much time alone. I literally ran away from spending time alone because I knew the minute I am alone for even more than maybe 2 hours, I was going to go haywire. I was going to go.
So in that moment, you knew you were battling mentally at the time as well.
I knew. You knew that I was like,
okay.
Chop life. I did not want to know.
So now, how do you now, because you say you once you get freedom, you now step out, you go to the US, which is what makes you
free, I'm far from everything. Like I can tell my mom I'm at school, but I'm in the middle of New York City.
You know what I mean? Doing the most.
Yeah.
So that was what you felt freedom was. So I think what it was is like, you were shielded.
Yeah, definitely.
You're not allowed to experience life in its entirety. So when you actually started to experience a bit of what freedom is, it allowed you to sort of, and I think that's where most of us tend to get things, we tend to mess up because...
And coming back?
Right, it becomes very, very difficult. You see, I keep giving an example of like, someone talked about like, lack of a father figure, for example. Like a girl, like especially young girls, what they're looking in a father is not really what you do for them, but who you are to them, the attention, the affection. But then as men, we tend to, substitute that for like taking you to fancy schools and like, give you money and so on and so forth. And when a kid starts to experience freedom, subconsciously they believe love is translated through money.
Yeah.
Which now leads them into all kinds of trouble because for them in their head is that Pops was not around, but his love was through
money. Yeah, they actually treat you like a sponsor,
And so you find so now you find all these sugar daddies and whatnot, and then you feel which is human nature, you know what I mean? So like I feel like it's very powerful that you managed to navigate around that you knew that you're battling mentally, even in light of what you're doing. So it drives me to the point of you being raised with your mom. I think that's what you say, right? Intergenerationally, how did you navigate around that? How did your mom start to make peace with? Because you said she started to make peace with who you are, but in the beginning she was a rebel.
It took me to be a rebel.
It took you to be a rebel. So do you advocate for being a rebel to a girl out there that wants to?
Please don't bring the African auntie.
No.
No, but I don't advocate
because most of us are being. You don't advocate.
I don't because even
look what it made you be.
I cannot wait. No. No, okay.
You turned out right.
It was a mixture of things because I know there's certain approaches I could have taken that were better. I know that there are times I was harsh on my mom. Like we have to have this conversation because at this point this is too much. So I came back from uni. Uni times, you're living on your own, you're doing your own thing, you're moving according to your own schedule. Coming back to your mother's house. There's rules, there's terms and conditions, regardless of you being an adult. So we butt heads at, the way I used to move. Because first of all, I've come home, I've spent a long time without coming home. I want to be in the streets, I want to link. But for her, she's like, you've come home, instead of looking for a job, you're gallivanting,
You're in vibes.
Yeah.
Vibrations.
Sis, I've just worked hard for this degree. You're there telling me I'm here. Slow down. Let me enjoy life. It's like, no, you have to be serious. Times are coming. And I'm like, okay,
You're there enjoying life with tattoos.
Hey, that in itself has a conversation of its own, guy.
A girl with tattoos?
No, forget a girl. A young African coming to work here with tattoos. It's an apocalypse.
But the tattoos are warrior, what?
Yo, let me tell you something. She even asked me to this day, don't you regret it? I'm like, not a single one. And funny enough, the first one she discovered was like my fourth.
I don't enjoy the light-skinned one. It's just like we just.
I did so well. Really? So well. Yeah.
And it was the fourth one.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So for me, I feel like I introduced her to a lot because.
But you didn't do it the right way.
Some things I didn't do the right way. So between me and my older brother is 9 years. That's a big gap. That's a bit of right. And between me and my sister is like about 19, 20 years. So that's she's the firstborn. So.
Is she the one that have the A student and whatnot?
Yeah, boy. So she's
20 years older than you.
Yeah. She's a mom and everything. Like she's a very And then I have 3 older brothers, and then there's me. So obviously the way I was parented and the way the boys
completely
were parented
different. Yeah.
And also I was a child that had the opportunity to have my mom around more.
Yeah.
Because they grew up in a harder time. Obviously, they grew up post-genocide, also pre-genocide. So it's like, mom's trying to figure things out, back and forth. So
she was never fully present.
Yeah. So even for them, it was like, okay, she's there. We know she loves us. She does the best she could because she's a single parent, number one.
Right.
So she's doing the best she could to make sure that everyone is okay. So when we moved back to Rwanda, I was a toddler. I was like 1 or 2. All of us were born in Uganda. So when we moved back is when we were settled, meaning that we all had mom's attention, but I had it from jump.
From the jump.
I'm last born.
The good, the bad, you had it all.
Everything.
Yeah.
And I also had the attention from like the siblings because I'm the baby of the family. Yeah. So I enjoyed that love. But that also came with a lot of strictness. Because obviously my sister went to the States when she was like 18 and, moved back much later. So it was mainly the boys in the house. And because of that large age gap, of course they're going to be allowed to do certain things that I'm not. But even when I came to the age where they started like going out, having links to their friends, I wasn't allowed to. And for me at first I was like, you know what? Fine, whatever. And it used to cause me to shut out and, the social thing never used to appeal to me.
You said the social thing?
Yes.
What's Nigeria?
Don't kill me. But yeah, it wasn't for me, because I was like, this is awkward because those guys are used to socializing. And I used to go to school with friends who were like, who had liberal parents. So imagine you're going there, people are there planning links. I'm like, I'm not asking her anything because I know the answer. There's no point. So that in itself
made you.
Yeah, like it added up. And I was like, the day I touch freedom like this,
she'll know what time it is.
She might not even know because I may just have forgotten to let her know.
So your approach was a bit harsh.
Yeah, I was like, yo, dude, like you've trusted me to live in a different country. I've survived. I've done well in school. Like what you sent me to do, I did, and I did very well. So why is it? Like, because
especially whenever you'd come here,
so like the first summer is when I was in my rebel child era. I was like, I'm gonna go out regardless, whether you like it or not. I'm in the streets, and that caused a tension between our relationship. And one thing about me and my mom, we've always been close. I've always been so close to my mom. So it was weird having that, but I was like, I'm doing this because she needs to have that detachment for a minute. And even though
in essence, you were helping her.
Yeah, but not in the right way. That's why I said some of my approaches were wrong. Because I could have gone in a better way in trying to like engage her in more conversation.
You didn't know any better.
But I was like, she needs to detach. And I went the hard way. So we used to like, have these
back and forth. You take days and weeks without talking.
Yeah, consistently until I got to a point now, COVID times. Hey, they hit us with a lockdown. I was like, I'm not saying this out. I'm going back to school. In the middle of COVID, I took myself and went back to America. But then that is also one of like the biggest like mental switches of my life. And I can call that my year of hustling. Because I got there in like January, right after New Year's. I was like, you know what? I'm tired of this place because America in itself like drained me mentally. It was a lot. I'm going to hustle, finish these degrees early, dip. So for a whole year straight, I was in school. I was working. That is all I did. Rarely any party, nothing. Like I literally took 2 weeks off the whole year from academics and work. By the time I come back home, I had done my research. I had landed a job. Didn't tell anybody. Came home quietly. Blah, blah, blah. Didn't even do the whole graduation thing. Because COVID times, I closed my laptop. I was like, well, we did well. Good job. On to the next thing. Came home. She's like, okay, so what's your plan? I'm like, don't worry. Even then, I was just detaching. But then it got to a point I was like, bro, trust me that I know what I'm doing. Yes, I may not know everything. Yes, I may need guidance, but the way you come at it sometimes, it doesn't make me want to talk to you. It doesn't make me want to bring my problems to you.
Do you know how many girls can never even think? Do you know, entertain that possibility?
My sister tells me,
approach your mom like that.
The way you talk to your mom, I could never. Like, even her, she knows, like, that difference in
Get slapped and wake up 2 weeks after.
Yeah. That's exactly what my sister said.
Yeah.
She was like, you have a different kind of freedom.
Yeah.
That I'm happy for you, but you have to use it the right way.
Right.
And I think even having my sister is one of like the biggest added bonuses, blessings ever, because she has a different perspective. She was parented in the years where like things were not the best,
options,
you know?
Yeah.
You have no option, and you know, that relationship also caused tension between them.
Right.
So even her, it's been repairing that relationship in the
all
older
years,
yeah. And seeing how I relate to my mom, she never had that even before. She's like, that's how you talk to mommy? If it was me, sit up one way. Even me, I had that freedom. So it got to a point where I had to be very aware, because I'm like, I have this privilege and I can't misuse it. Because even for my siblings, like even for my brothers especially, it helps, you know, getting to my mom, because I'm the one who's closest to my mom. I'm the one who gets her the most. We're the one who we butt heads the most, but
you're very connected. That's so dope. So right now, in hindsight, you guys are
we're G's.
G's.
Like, she's my mom, but sometimes I have to remind myself
that she's your mom.
Yeah, because we're friends.
So that means in a way you've helped her heal as well.
Yeah, I think
from her past predispositions and whatnot, by your approach.
It has brought to her
self-reflection,
attention. Yeah, like that.
She's that too.
She's like, okay, there's some things I say, and she's like, you're onto something. And even for her, I know there's been instances where it's hard to say, like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Because, like, one of the things that, like, the hardest conversations, like the body image. I was a chubby kid, so I had the comments from the aunties, the uncles. Everybody had an opinion about my body. And I told her, I was like, even if you're trying to tell me to get healthy, it's not encouraging me to be healthy. You're not making me want to do that. If anything, you make me hate myself.
Right.
And having that conversation later to a point where, like, you know, I started working on my body, I'm more comfortable in the skin I'm in. Like, you know, you can't come and tell me. I'm like, oh, that's your own.
Right.
But telling her that, for her, it was hard to listen to, because she's a mother. She wants the best for you. Yes. But I'm like, in that instance, if I was the one telling that to you, would you feel encouraged?
No.
And that is when it clicked for her. And that, I'm sorry. Even for me, I was never ready. I was the biggest emotional wreck that day. But for her, I know even there's instances where it's been difficult to come face to face with those things as a parent.
Yeah.
And even for them, it's like, it's the best you've ever known. Like, I know for her, she never would have expected being a single parent to 5 kids. She never would have expected everything.
But that's she did incredibly well.
I know, like, that's something that one of my biggest flexes is actually my mom, because for her to do what she does, the job that she does, being a selfless human being, like
that's
big
powerful.
member. So even for her, I had to extend that grace, because that could have not been easy.
Right.
And doing all that displacement,
Juggling
you have a toddler, you have another one who's like 8 years old, teenagers. It's not easy.
That's powerful.
And you're parenting boys on your own.
I can testify to that, because me and my bro were raised by a single mom as well, and my sister. And trust me, we gave her a bit, not even a bit. Like we met, and what tends to happen is the person the object of that wrath was my sister. She's only suffered the most because of us being
the two
rebels.
boys.
Yes, right. So, and usually so that takes us back to like how family unit works.
Yeah, definitely.
The temperaments that both people bring to to the table as a dad and a mom, which is something we're not mindful of, as we tend to get under pressure to want to get married.
And even when you're not connected to someone, it literally affects you.
100%. It even affects your health. The kids, these are it's very emotionally, and we don't understand all these intricacies as people, which is this is a different thing. But when you talk about intergenerational, so I feel like it's very experiential to you. It's something you've navigated and still navigating right now, which is also bringing health to you and to your mom, who knew it come from the last born.
Yeah.
Who
knew?
You know what I mean? And so that's very powerful.
Look, maybe we should just take a break. Okay, fine. You're right. Let's take a break. Let's cool off, okay? Let's get some frozen yogurt or something.
Oh my God! Wow!
Takes me to a question of like mental health that is undermined in our societies here, me back home and whatnot. And I find the fact that we have not quite bridged like this. There's a misunderstanding of what mental health is.
Yeah, definitely.
And the fact that we live in a very rapidly accelerated culture with too many options, we're finding ways of suppressing
everything.
You get what I'm saying? So it's
vibes.
Like yes,
even vibes has become a form of
our hometown is like battle, like vibe. You know what I mean? With vibe. But all that is quenching in the head.
Yeah.
You know when you have porridge in the head? That's what it is back home. So it's just master of vibes, but it's porridge in the head. So what's happening is that we are not connected, our old folk and us, in many areas. And what happens is that parents really focus on them vicariously living their life choices to us, the things they failed. And on top of that, they also care about perception. So now, I like to say, someone said, if my relationship with you is dependent on me satisfying your expectations of me, that's not a relationship, it's a prison. So most of us have been raised, it's a business deal. Most of us as kids have been raised in safe prisons. Where it's like,
woo! Someone just said safe prison. First wait.
So it's like, there's this prison where it's like, it's predicated on being a good person, like just maintaining a good perception.
And let me tell you,
and it's a prison. It's a good prison.
Rwanda is like a very conservative society. Very conservative, very image driven.
Yes.
My friend. Actually, even part of that,
So you find that it disables you, like you can try and play safe. Be in a safe prison all your life. But unfortunately, you might never get a chance to be you.
You hit a wall at some point, man.
You hit a wall and you will find a way of trickling through your lifestyle and whatnot, whether either through family, either through you suppressing. Because the truth is, someone said it's not really what we try, it's not really the trials that we go through and whatnot. It's really us finding mechanisms to suppress. The more you keep suppressing, the more it keeps perpetuating.
It grows.
We don't want to. And the thing
it's harder to deal with like later.
Right. The thing about our traumas is not, we try to find ways of going around it as opposed to, and yet the way to heal from it is to go through it. The pain.
Let me
the pain is supposed to be our friend, but we look at it
make it
adversity. You know what I'm saying? So this safe prison, how do we approach this thing? How do we make it make sense to? Because the truth is, people our age and below are battling. And
even our elders, man, like,
and they don't even know.
A lot of people. Let me tell you something that hit home for me that like kind of put things in perspective. So when I was still in school, first of all, I went to a very white school. I went to a predominantly white school. As in, it was a lot. But in all of that, there was like the one or two people who are actually interested in knowing where you're from and not the generic, you're from Africa, exotic vibes. So this girl, we had a conversation and it was around the commemoration period. And, you know, one of the director of multicultural affairs, she's like, want to do something to like honor, you know, the victims from Rwanda, whatever. I was like, thank you, that's very nice. And they took that opportunity to also educate people. So after that, this girl approaches me. She's like, you know, if you don't mind, like, obviously, like, you can draw your boundaries, fine. But it's interesting to me because she knew I wrote about mental health. She knew, like, I use my social media, my platforms to talk about mental health a lot. So she was like, how is it that you talk about it so much? And you talk about it in a way that you make it sound like people there don't pay attention to mental health. How is it that people who've gone through this amount of trauma, like, there's things that people in your country have seen that probably like more than 80% of the world might not ever know or see. You know?
Right.
How can you guys have that kind of trauma and not care about mental health? That
hit you.
Sat with me for a long time because even my mom's line of work, my mom has an organization where like she employs genocide survivors, women across the country to make baskets to export them and the women make money. Cool. So when I was young, I used to have like engagements with these people, see them. And obviously there was certain filters in terms of, you know, what my mom, like what stories I can listen to. But as I grew up, there's like more hectic ones. And I think I told you one earlier about this lady who was talking about how she literally watched her whole entire family be killed. And then at the end of the story, she turns around and is like, oh, and her husband is the one who did it.
What?
So you know the faces. And this is a common story. There's so many people around that.
To go through that,
yeah. So there's that post-genocide trauma that some people don't acknowledge. And it's not because they don't want to. For some people, it's because they don't want to because it's trauma. For you, you might have experienced it, you might have been there. So there's something that you can't do it. You're not there yet. And for some people, it's just like you ignore it because you don't care, you don't know. Like mental health is not a thing to you. But there's like the more extreme cases of the post-genocide trauma in terms of like there's children out there that were born as a product of rape. There's women who like there's actually a book that was done profiling various women who were survivors of rape, and they're like, I look at my child, I'm like, yuck, like I don't
completely,
and you can understand her because
it wasn't consensual,
exactly, and it was a very traumatic experience for you, so I can understand it. But then that child, how are they gonna grow up? How are they gonna cope with this? Who are they gonna call mom and dad? Because you don't know who your dad is. The only parent you know is your parent, like your mom. So that's more of an extreme. Then there's a post-genocide trauma in terms of parents who have not dealt with that trauma yet. It may be people who have been on the front line, which is for many Rwandan people have fathers, uncles who are in the army. And they have that trauma where like it could be anger, it could be, alcoholism, it could be misusing even money, like things like that, because you've gotten to a point where you have money, you never had.
You guys drink like us.
Guy.
You don't drink like Ugandans.
Actually, I can bank on the statement that Ugandans can party and drink. Rwandans will drink.
More than Ugandans.
We may not party as hard and do enjoyment, but one thing about that alcohol.
You guys could wear some drinking.
It shall be controlled.
You guys could wear some drinking.
Man, I don't know.
Ugandans don't play my G.
Rwandans don't either. Because guys can go out and just push.
You guys drinking ties and all.
Guys can go out and push with no plans of even going out.
You guys, your drinking is professional. You guys are professional drinking. You drink even the way you walk when you're drunk. It's like this.
I hate you. But let's get to
back to the mechanism.
Back to the mechanism. So, like these coping mechanisms, they affect you as a child. Some people have like avoidant, ways of parenting, because even for you, like you may have been ripped from your parents from young. So even you're like, what am I doing? And then for others, it's like I'm running away from my own trauma because the day I sit down and address it, it's gonna be a bit too much. And for others, it's just the plain lack of awareness that your mental health exists and you need to take care of it. So for me, that sat with me for a while because I had that privilege. I call it a privilege because it's not a lot of people who are going to have that first-hand experience of hearing such stories and seeing people be that vulnerable and being around such an environment.
Right.
So having that on one end, then having my mom who has her own experiences, like, your family fled, you've come back, you've also seen things, on the front line. Things like that happen to you. And because for them, like, this traumatic thing happens, we have to rebuild the country. We have children that need to be raised, that need to come home. Like, they literally did not have time to sit and be like,
get the job done. Yeah.
What have I been through?
Yeah.
Nothing. Because you're from one place. Literally, my mom came back, saw things were bad. She was like, okay, at least I can get land. Got land, came, started building pole, brought her kids back, started work. Like, she never had time. So even for her to extend that grace and be like, yo, this woman, I have the freedom, I have the privilege, I have the resources of being able to say, I have time for my mental health. I have resources that can help me. Do you think therapy was a thing for guys in a little bit? Like, that's a therapist. We need actual doctors talk about therapists. Please go talk to God. And religion is also another way of like running.
Let's not get into the religion.
Yeah, because
religion is what I call certified quencher.
And you know how people get offended. I'm like, I pray to God, I read my Bible.
Are you spiritual then?
But I am. But I don't like saying, oh, I am a Christian, I am a this. Because now it's just a label. It's like people wake up and wear Balenciaga. I'm a Christian. Lies. You're a liar.
To the point that you actually, I think most of our old folk particularly, have used it, it's properly misrepresented. I'm telling you, most of our old folk will tell you they're born again.
That's why a lot
they'll know the Bible from back to back. Exactly.
They don't like religion.
And yet their lifestyles are completely contrary. Like, it's like there's a lot of pretense. The guy will even give you scripture telling you about not drinking, but the guy goes around the table and the guy comes to church and preaches. You know what I mean? So it's like, for me, I think it's not even so much so what you're doing. It's like, one thing I like about spirituality is that communicate vulnerability, because this thing is not supposed to point me to the messenger, but rather to the message. But most of what religion does, it points me towards the messenger, so I become obsessed with the messenger.
And people don't realize pastors are here sinning in front of them. They're telling people they're going to hell. Sorry, sir. Since when were you God? Like, it's crazy. And even in that religion thing, like, one thing that I respect about my mom, because my mom's she's a prayerful woman. Like, she prays a lot fervently. So religion was something big, but we have different religions in my family. So even for me, part of my rebel phase, I was like, I don't want to be a Christian anymore. I'm going to be a Muslim.
So you became Muslim or something?
Yeah, I did. Like, I started reading the Quran. I started, I did Ramadan because my brother's a Muslim. And, in that moment, I was like, but intention. What is the end goal here? And in the time I was reading the Quran, one thing that struck me, and one of the things that I find so beautiful and I respect about Islam, is that Islam actually condemns people from coming to tell someone, oh, you must follow God, or if you don't follow Allah, Allah is the only... They can't do that.
But some of them are...
So those are people who are doing it wrong, because the Quran teaches you, if you want someone to follow Islam, they follow according to your deeds.
That's powerful.
Show them.
But even the Bible says that. They shall know you by the fruits.
Exactly. If you open your mouth and say, you condemn someone that if they don't follow, you yourself, you're no better than them.
That's powerful.
Right?
That's powerful.
I was like,
So, I'm going to ask you one last question. How does all of this experience, because I feel like it's quite powerful and very deep, and you strike me like a person who has been very deliberate about this. You've carried it on. You're publicly speaking about it in a space that people clearly need. It's not even a luxury talking about it. It's very much needed in our spaces. And how have you personalized this, and what's your intention with this? Why are you doing this?
I'm doing it for the kids. No, but actually, like, I say it as a joke, but no, in seriousness.
What are you doing it for kids? You're a kid.
I am, but
dizzy blood.
I am at a point where, like, when I got the clout that I have, I was never ready for it. It came. Let me tell you that the most unexpected way possible is what has gotten me here. But in that, like, that's why I always tell people, like, when you're chasing clout, what are you going to do with it when you have it? I was like, I started talking about mental health on a smaller scale. Like, yes, I have my friends and a few other 30, 40 people scattered around the world who read it. But I want it to be a wider conversation. And there's no better time than now. So I was like, I'm going to use my clout for good. And I've always been, even in my work, like professionally, I always believe that my impact is what brings my income. And true to it, that's been the case, all thanks to God. I cannot take the credit for it, because the things that happen, and I'm like, genuinely, I'm a vessel, I am moving, it's just me, because things shock me. So I do it because when I started writing, there's messages, 2018 is when I started putting out, I put out like my first piece, and it was like a quick one. It was like a sweet 3 paragraphs. No long thing. And the response I got, it was insane. My friends, people who are older than me. And then it kept growing and growing and growing. And then at some point, like, I'm the type of person, I hate injustice. So if I see something that's not right, I like to speak out and I don't waste time about it. So there's times things would happen, like 2 times, I think, I posted a video because I was angry about something, and it just ended up blowing up some way, somehow. And they're like, she's got something to say. And once I get your attention there, I want to get your attention, not because you should give me your attention or I want you to follow. No, I want to have your attention because I genuinely want to do good for people.
Powerful.
Because I know that the mental health journey in our society is not easy. For the last few months, I've had the opportunity of going to a few high schools and talking about mental health. But hearing some of the stories and some of the weight these children carry might bring you to tears.
It's mad.
Because you look at them and you're from well-to-do families.
It's those ones
they bring you to school in Nampengs.
It's those ones. Those ones with them pinks suffer the most.
But there's a girl who sent me a DM one time. And I usually don't check my social media throughout the day. Guy, she wrote to me telling me yo, Zuba, I don't feel like being here anymore. I'm tired of essentially I'm basically the last call.
That's powerful.
And this is someone who has never seen my face. You interact with me through your phone. And
how old is she?
She was a teenager. I think she was about 17, 18. And this was last year, November. This is recent. And reading that message in that moment, I'm like, first of all, number one, why do you think I'm the right person to come to? But then I had to quickly realize yo, you've put yourself out there, you've put your story out there, and people find comfort in that. So whatever way that this person has come to you is something God has chosen. God has chosen you for this moment. Right. So whatever you're gonna do, pick your words very, very carefully. Well, because this is a make or break situation, which essentially is when someone is telling you words like that. And being a person who knows what it feels like to be in that situation, I didn't take it lightly. And I just got on there and I started messaging the girl. I was like, yo, I don't know if you're spiritual, but one thing about me, I believe in God. And I don't know what it is, but you're meant to be here. And I just kept speaking words of life over her. And I kept telling her, whatever it may be, whatever relationship, whatever thing it may be, ultimately, you have the power of making or breaking the trauma you have. You have the power of staying in that trauma. But you have to actively choose to work on it. It's not fun. It's not easy. It's horrible. Yeah. There's days you genuinely don't even feel like waking up because you're just I'm tired of undoing a lot of the stuff. And it's also not easy looking at yourself as a culprit because there's things you're going to have to realize and see. I inflicted this on myself. I allowed this. So in that moment, there was a sense of purpose that came with that. And I may be there and, for some people, it may be she's just chatting, the mental health self-care, it's trending. But I'm there because I genuinely want someone to have a lighter walk through life than I may have. Perfect. Whether it be through me cracking a joke, talking about how last week I was depressed, fine. Whether it be me opening up and talking about things that people genuinely don't talk about. Even me sharing my journey of getting my body to where it is you don't understand how many girls would write to me and be like, bro, this? And to me, I get scared to even put that out there. But to even get that one person, even if it's one person in 100, 1 million, I don't care.
Even pull out the accent for this part.
Yeah. If it's one person like this, I have done it.
That's powerful.
I've done it and that's enough for me because it really just takes one person.
Yo. I feel like we need a part 2 for this. I kid you not. Because this is really amazing. I like when vulnerability guides everything that you do because that way you take off the whole pretense of I'm not
going to come and fox you or I'm living the best life because nothing. Yeah?
Especially as a hot babe, I'm like, this hot chick.
Love me.
Yeah?
Love me.
But it's the truth. But especially, I thought you said hot chicks who have those zibs.
Hot chicks. What are you saying?
Hot chicks have zibs, you guys. Because you guys have to maintain.
They believe in that social standard you be putting, eh?
Everyone is bigging you up, everyone is bigging you up, so you have to go and look for. You have to maintain. Now when you maintain, there's porridge that sort of mix in the head,
even lack of maintenance, now you feel like
if you just slack just one, put on 1 kilo. 1 kilo like this, your life has ended now.
I'm deleting my account.
I have to do my account. I don't have for deleting accounts. Bang! 2 weeks delete, reinstate, what?
Gym, drink some sleep,
you come back. You know what I mean? All chicks have suffered.
The women have suffered.
Yeah, so we definitely need a part 2. I appreciate the fact that we're now embracing these conversations. And you're one of the pioneers, I'd like to say, and I believe this is transgenerational. I think this is stuff that will spark for years to come, many years to come. You know what I mean? Obviously things like this, things like this are met with resistance because they're fairly new.
Yeah.
But then ultimately they start to make peace with them. So it's about coming in a very gentle way, and people start to embrace them.
You don't want another generation of looking.
Exactly. So I think they really intend to spark in conversations. So as far as this,
shout out to you, man.
Big wow.
Big up Uno.
I want to reach 1 million likes. So please, sarapakarai. Okay, thank you.